SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Have you been seriously injured? Mama Justice is here for you. Our medical team partners with top-notch doctors, surgeons, therapists, and urologists, ensuring a comprehensive recovery journey. If you've been injured, call Mama Justice today. We're here for you.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man.
You know what you could call this particular Monday morning? A day that you would like to sleep in a little while longer. You got sleeping weather across the Magnolia State. Storms, thunderstorms, rain. Coming off the weekend. Love to hit that snooze bar just one more time before you roll out of the sack. Well, it's time to get the day going. Time to get the week going. Let's do it with Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi alongside Lance Tolbert. I'm Richard. Thanks for joining us this morning. We hope you had a great weekend. Maybe you got to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of relaxation, perhaps a little family time along the way. Maybe made it to church yesterday. The whole checked all the boxes over the course of the weekend, and now ready to crush a new week. Good morning, Lance. What's up, brother?
Oh, just skating in, through the raindrops.
Skating or swimming?
Yeah, it was more like surfing in a bit. So if you're driving in this morning, folks, it is a doozy out there, mostly at a diagonal across the state. So the way those thunderstorms are really kind of breaking down, Richard, there's boxes everywhere, and it's almost like it's going up I-55 in a nice little diagonal. If you're hitting one of those little red boxes, and I will promise you don't want to be on the road at that moment. So be super careful this morning in the dark. I'm just giving you a little advice. If you can wait a few minutes as one of those passes through, you may want to do that because it's a gully washer out there this morning.
Literally. From Woodville to Iuka, it is raining.
Yes, and then there's some severe stuff in that line, too. It's right in the middle of it.
And actually, if you want to expand it out just a touch more, from
Baton Rouge
to Nashville, it's raining.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, that's the line, and it's about it's not quite the width of the state of Mississippi. I mean, Lance pointed out, diagonally. So if you're in northwest Mississippi, DeSoto County, Tate County, all about the western half of Marshall County, you're in the clear. Mm-hmm. If you're in southeast Mississippi, down on the coast, you're pretty good. But if you are in, literally, Woodville, Jackson, Madison, Grenada, Coffeyville, Water Valley, Oxford, Iuka, Corinth, Ripley, anywhere in between, it is getting after it this morning.
And in Jackson, trust me, folks, there's 3 or 4 cells that are popping around here. So wherever you're coming in from or going to, check the radar before you go. Just a little advice.
Coming up later today, it's actually going to get a little bit better. Tunica, you're going to have partly cloudy skies this afternoon. High of only 63 in the northwestern corner of the state of Mississippi. Winds out of the north at 10 to 20 miles an hour. A little bit to the east and the south of Tunica over in Fulton. You've got some scattered thunderstorms this morning once this line gets through. Then partly cloudy later. Your high 65. Chance of rain about 50%. Again, that's after this big line of storms gets through. Summerall, thunderstorms this morning. Partly cloudy later today. Potential for severe thunderstorms. Your high is 79 today. So big difference. Northern part of the state, southern part of the state. Waynesboro, thunderstorms this morning. Partly cloudy later on the day. Potential for some severe thunderstorms. High of 79. Your wind out of the west, southwest. So a little bit warmer wind for you. Chance of rain 80%. May even reach an inch as this system makes its way through the state of Mississippi. What we hope, Lance, is we are confined to those red boxes you were talking about as thunderstorms, and you don't have anything spin out of them.
Well, as Ed from New Hope said, it's a frog choker this morning, so yeah, definitely is.
Yep. Al Gore was born on this day in 1948.
Yay!
He's an American politician, an environmentalist, served as Vice President of the United States for 8 years from 1993 until 2001. Born in Washington, D.C. I didn't know that happened. I didn't know anybody was actually born there. Al Gore was. And, of course, most importantly, invented the Internet.
I was going to say, he walked a long way farming every day, and while he was inventing the Internet, thank goodness.
Yeah.
If we did not have that. You know, one of the funny things about Al Gore's birthday is that on our list, everybody has like a description next to their birthday, but the only one on the list that doesn't is Al Gore. It just says Al Gore, 77 years old. Doesn't need much, I guess. I'm not sure what that insinuates, but not a lot.
I mean, does that mean you were significant where it's like it's not
everybody
necessary
knows.
to explain who you were?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you invented the Internet,
yeah.
I mean, go ahead, friend.
What a dude.
Go ahead.
What is he? Now, he's Mr. Environmentalist. Isn't that his post-vice presidency gig?
Yeah, he's an environmentalist. So, the reason that did he actually claim that he invented the Internet?
He said something at one point where there was multiple outrageous claims that he had made, things that he had done, problems he had solved all by himself.
All right, so of Gore's involvement in the then-developing Internet while in Congress, Internet pioneers Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn have noted as far back as the 1970s, Congressman Gore promoted the idea of high-speed telecom as an engine for both economic growth and the improvement of our educational system. He was the first elected official to grasp the potential of computer communications to have a broader impact than just improving the conduct of science and scholarship. The Internet, as we know it today, not deployed until 1983 when the Internet was still in the early stages of its deployment. Congressman Gore provided intellectual leadership by helping create the vision of the potential benefits of high-speed computing and communication. As an example, sponsored hearings on how advanced technologies might be put to use in areas like coordinating the response of government agencies to natural disasters and other crises. So,
wasn't the military using their version of that for 30 years beforehand, though? My understanding is that there was a Internet system that was closed, and only a handful of entities had access to that. It was a closed system, per se, because the World Wide Web really didn't exist. But, yeah, I mean, the Internet, per se, had existed. It just wasn't in a consumer-based, I guess, application.
Well, inventing something from scratch and being the first person in a significant position of power to recognize the possibilities of an invention are not exactly the same thing.
No.
Right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm in on that.
Like, me hanging out with the guy who invented the zipper and him going, check this out. I just came up with the ability to take these two pieces of cloth or two pieces of anything and connect them through these little teeth. And I go, you know what? That's got the power to change the world. Let's tell people about it. Does not mean that I invented the zipper.
Yeah, the guy that invented the shoelace, that's who I want to meet. And whenever I pass on one day, it's like, I want to find that guy. That's a genius there. It's like everybody had sandals. They were strapping everything down.
Oh, and he's like, what if we punch some holes in this leather and then loop this back and forth?
Yeah. Let's try this.
Did you have another birthay of significance? Nothing stood out to me.
I mean, if Samantha Brown, Congressman Barney Frank, he's one that you would consider famous. AC/DC.
Again, nothing really stood out to me.
AC/DC's Angus Young. I mean, he could sweat and play. I remember being on the front row when they showed up. in Jackson many moons ago, probably when I was about 12 or 13. Never made it to the front of the pit before at that point. Got there and asked myself, why are you here? Because it was just the worst experience. But the one cool thing I did get is some Angus Young sweat on me before I had to find my way back to the other side.
Crowd surf?
No, I was just digging my way through. But it's funny when you research a little bit about Angus. They threw that little uniform on him as kind of a promotional thing right out of the gate, and then so he got stuck wearing the schoolboy uniform because that kind of became his look. Can you imagine me like 78, 80 years old, still going out jamming in like the schoolboy outfit with a little buzzer hat on? Yeah, he always said that he just kind of embraced it. It wasn't really his thing, but I always thought that was funny. Good sport, Yeah,
I guess so. We've got news headlines for you. Another busy weekend in the world of sports coming up for you also. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. By the way, on this day, in 1889, the Eiffel Tower officially opened for dignitaries and an awards ceremony in Paris. It was designed by Gustave Eiffel and built for the Exposition Universelle. 300 meters high, it held the record for tallest man-made structure for 41 years. We're back with you right after this.
From the Venom,
Mississippi, you're starting your day off right.
welcome to
Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good morning. Thanks for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. The C Spire text line is open to you. Love to hear from you on this wet Monday morning. 601-879-4395. Every sports fan can tell you fast speeds win games. That's why C Spire brings you fiber home internet, nationwide 5G wireless, and IT solutions that move as fast as your business. Learn more at cspire.com. C Spire, inspired by you.
Hey, one little factoid about Al Gore's, I guarantee you he's the only person you've ever heard of who married somebody named Tipper. I even looked that up. That's not a very, if you meet somebody named Tipper, let me know. Never heard of that one. But, yeah, that's one of his probably claims to fame.
I've heard of a Tepper.
Yeah. Never a Tipper.
Tipper.
Yeah, I looked it up. I mean, I tried to find somebody else with the name Tipper, but
Tipper.
Yeah,
she
Tipper.
was my waitress.
That's what it got referred to. It's like a tipper. That's somebody that gives money to somebody for a service provided. I'm like, no. I'm talking about the name Tipper. Come on, AI, get with it. But no, couldn't find any.
On this day in 1932, Ford publicly unveiled its V8 engine.
And you think about it, 1938. I mean, how raw was that thing back then? A V8 in 1930 something.
Oh, man. You think that was just raw power?
Yeah. Come on, man.
Torque.
It was like 800 horsepower. Like, how many horses do we have to line up here? Well, put 400 up. That's what we're working with. So
yeah. You remember the Tim the Toolman Taylor show?
Yeah.
I can't ever remember the name of the actual show, but it's like, hey, it was
Tool
Tim
Time.
the Toolman.
What was it? No, Home Improvement, right?
Home Improvement was the show. Tool Time was the name of his show that he hosted.
And he had a band, actually. Buddy Slowick on the Handyman Show. A couple of weeks ago, we do a music segment every morning, and he featured the Tool Time Band, and they just use power tools and all kinds of stuff. Actually kind of make music out of it. It was pretty amazing.
Well, you remember any time that they said something or did something that was kind of manly feeling or whatever, they would kind of whoa. So, 1932, Ford publicly unveils its V8 engine. Feels like it fits. I don't know. Maybe off the rails on a Monday morning. Do we have a special session coming for the legislature? Interesting weekend in Jackson. The Senate gavelled in at the state capitol on Saturday morning for what is commonly referred to as conference weekend, time that has become status quo for the leaders of both chambers, both the Senate and the House, to negotiate the state's multi-billion-dollar budget for the incoming fiscal year. But the House decided to go home. So, Speaker Jason White, before they gavelled out on Friday, told representatives, go home for the weekend. We'll see you Monday afternoon. And this ruffled some feathers, kind of upset some people a little bit. Jason White said that they wanted to start negotiations on the estimated $7 billion budget weeks in advance of the deadline to ensure that taxpayer dollars are not misspent as a consequence of a rushed, blurry-eyed weekend when the Senate chose to maintain tradition and stay in Jackson for the weekend. White did not budge on his belief that budget talks need to begin earlier each session. We're going to talk more about this in the 7 o'clock hour, because this is interesting. I will give you this quote from the Speaker of the House. When I was elected Speaker on January 2nd, 2024, I pledged to my House colleagues and all Mississippians to strive for a more transparent and open budget process. Members would not be expected to meet behind closed doors late on weekend nights to rush out a budget without full vetting and an opportunity to question and scrutinize every tax dollar spent. He released this statement on Saturday afternoon. Not from the Capitol. Well, maybe he was in the Capitol when he released the statement, but the rest of the House wasn't. Again, the Senate leaders not pleased with this action from the House. And so after a Thursday of kumbaya at the governor's mansion, where everybody was there for the signing and the photo op, Senate and the House frustrated with each other once again. As part of a federal effort to secure the southern border, the law enforcement agency in Mississippi, or a law enforcement agency in Mississippi, announced the arrest of 25 individuals traveling through the state without proof of citizenship. Can't do that. According to the Rankin County Sheriff's Department, a joint operation with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Division of Customs and Border Patrol, that's Homeland Security's CBP, that was executed between March 17th and March 21st along the I-20 corridor. As part of a federal effort to secure the southern border, law enforcement agency in Mississippi announced the arrest of 25 individuals, according to, again, the Rankin County Sheriff's Department. It was dubbed Operation Magnolia, and you had 22 of the 25 processed for removal from the United States, home countries of Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. No names have been released. The other 3 out of that group of 25 were, they're going to be prosecuted under the Reentry After Deportation federal statute. So, in summary, a bunch of people that weren't supposed to be here were here, and Rankin County Sheriff's Department and other law enforcement officials in the Jackson metro area worked with the Department of Homeland Security, and they're sending 25 people home that are not supposed to be here. Adios. Donald Trump is frustrated with both Volodymyr Zelensky, what's new, and Vladimir Putin. Trump insisted to reporters that they're making a lot of progress, but he recognized publicly that there is, as he has before, tremendous hatred between the two men, and negotiations may not be moving as quickly as Trump thought they would or as he promised during the campaign season. Trump began voicing his criticisms in an early morning interview with NBC News yesterday. Trump was at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Said he was, quote, angry and pissed off, close quote, that Putin questioned Zelensky's credibility. You may have seen this. Vladimir Putin recently said that Zelensky lacks the legitimacy to sign a peace deal and suggested that they needed external governance. There is a problem with that. Under the laws that they have in Ukraine, you cannot have an election for a new president while engaged in a war. And so Trump kind of ratcheted things up with regard to Russia and said that he would consider adding new sanctions on Russia, which includes more tariffs on Russian oil. Donald Trump doesn't go after Vladimir Putin very often, but he did in this case, and it's pretty fascinating. Told you last week that there is an election coming up tomorrow in Wisconsin, and that election includes one of the seats on the Supreme Court. Hakeem Jeffries was on a video call, I guess it was last week, explaining why, from a Democrat perspective, this election was so important.
In Wisconsin, that's a 50-50 race because we know Wisconsin's a 50-50 state.
Yeah.
And we have a strong Democratic candidate. Whoever wins is going to determine who has the majority in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Why is that important? Because there are gerrymandered congressional lines right now in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a 50-50 state, as I mentioned, but there are 6 Republicans and only 2 Democrats out of an 8-person delegation because the lines are broken.
Right.
He's saying that the existing lines are gerrymandered to a Republican advantage, and so it's really, really important to get a new Supreme Court justice that perhaps could tip the balance in the state Supreme Court to redraw the district lines so that they are gerrymandered in favor of the other side. Elections matter. Elections have consequences. Big, big, big race in the state of Wisconsin. Brad Schimmel is the Republican candidate for state Supreme Court. Thanks for being with us this morning. We've got some sports headlines coming up for you. Recap the baseball weekend for Mississippi State, Southern Miss, and Ole Miss. Take a look at the baseball standings right now after 3 weeks of conference play. The Final Four is set. Ole Miss and Michigan State battled on Friday night in the Sweet 16. And a former Bulldog made his Major League Baseball debut yesterday. We'll tell you who and what and where when we come back. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Want to know what's being said in the halls of the Capitol? You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I'm a hard-working man. I wear a steel hard hat. I can ride rope, a hammer and paint, do things with my hands that most men can't. I can't get ahead no matter how hard I try. I'm getting really good at barely getting by.
Man, did they just pump out hit after hit after hit?
That's all they do.
Great Brooks and Dunn. After a weekend of Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games, the Final Four is set. It will happen this coming weekend. Saturday, you'll have 2 semifinal games, and then on Monday night, the championship game. And it is a phrase that is often used when you talk about the best teams winning games, chalky. 4 1 seeds. All 4 number 1 seeds in the NCAA men's basketball tournament have advanced to San Antonio for the Final Four. The first game on Saturday will be between a pair of teams from the SEC, the Auburn Tigers and the Florida Gators. And then on the other side of the bracket, it is the number 1 overall seed Duke and the Houston Cougars. That is after the weekend of results. So you had Sweet 16 matchups that got started on Thursday. Florida beat Maryland on Thursday. Texas Tech came back from 16 down, and they beat Arkansas in overtime on Thursday, setting up a matchup between the Gators and the Texas Tech Red Raiders to go to the Final Four. And then on the other side, you had in Atlanta, Auburn and Michigan in the late game. Auburn beat Michigan 78-65. And Ole Miss and Michigan State played in a pretty outstanding basketball game, with the Spartans winning 73-70 over Ole Miss. And so that set up the Auburn-Michigan State battle yesterday. Auburn won that game 70-64 and advanced for the meeting with the Florida Gators. Let's talk a little bit more about that meeting between Ole Miss and Michigan State. The Rebels were led once again by Sean Padula, who had an exceptional NCAA tournament in the 3 games. He averaged over 20 points per game. He had 24 on 9 of 17 shooting in the ballgame. Malik Dia had 11 points. Matthew Morrell had 13 points. Those were the only 3 in double figures for the Rebels. Michigan State was led by Jace Richardson with his 20. They had 3 other players that scored in double figures. Ole Miss did not shoot the ball as well, but they were facing the best defensive team that they had faced in the tournament. Only 33%. They hit 9 of 27 from behind the arc. So there were a couple of pretty significant keys going into that game for Ole Miss. They needed to hold their own in terms of rebounding because Michigan State was a very good rebounding team. They needed to protect the basketball, not turn it over a lot, and they needed to create some turnovers. So how did they do in those 3 categories? Check, check, and check. Ole Miss out-rebounded Michigan State 33-29. They only turned it over 8 times in the game while forcing 10 turnovers, and they had 8 steals in the game, although the steal that Michigan State had late proved to be one that was massive. The Spartans only 1 steal in the game, but it led to a bucket late. And Ole Miss hit a 3 as time expired in the game. Thought it was kind of fitting that it was Matthew Morrell that hit that 3-point basket. He has been injured for much of the season, and that's after 3 straight years of leading Ole Miss in scoring. It's kind of a nice way to finish his career, but it was inconsequential in the grand scheme of things as Michigan State won to pick up their 30th victory of the year. It was Tom Izzo's 11th win in a Sweet 16 game. Their 16th appearance in the Sweet 16 under Tom Izzo. It was Ole Miss's 2nd ever. You watched the game?
Oh, I did, yeah. The thing is, I mean, it was such
incredible basketball.
Yeah, it was. And when you get to the highest levels, it's one play. You know, Ole Miss makes one more shot or does one other thing well. Yeah, it's just so magnified at that level. And hats off to Ole Miss getting into the Sweet 16 and was just a little bit away from making
close.
that. Yeah, very close, man.
So very close. And if they had won, they would have had a 4th meeting with Auburn, but they did not. And so the season came to an end for Chris Beard and Ole Miss. 2nd year for Chris Beard as the head coach of the Rebels. Ole Miss finishes the season with a record of 24-12. Had baseball this weekend. Both Mississippi State and Ole Miss played Thursday, Friday, Saturday series, although Ole Miss's series came to an end on Friday night. Mississippi State went to Baton Rouge, lost the first game by a final of 8-6, held a lead fairly late in that ball game, but couldn't hold LSU down. Low-scoring second game on Friday, and it was LSU winning a 2-1 pitcher's duel. And then in the series finale, late on Saturday night, they got postponed for a while because of weather issues there. LSU got the bats out, and they won big 17-8. So LSU sweeps Mississippi State in Baton Rouge. Great series in Hattiesburg this weekend where Southern Miss and South Alabama hooked up in Sun Belt Conference action. Golden Eagles won the first game 8-2. They lost 6-3 in the second game. And then in extra innings, 12 innings yesterday, Southern Miss able to squeak one out. Got a sacrifice fly in the bottom of the 12th inning to win 8-7 and take the series from South Alabama. Won 2 out of 3. Golden Eagles are 7-2 in Sun Belt Conference play through 3 weekends. And then the aforementioned Florida-Ole Miss series got started on Thursday night. Ole Miss won that game 7-5. They won in dramatic fashion the second game of the series, which was the first game of a doubleheader on Friday, 10-9. And there was some drama in that game. Kind of started in the sixth inning and escalated from there. Florida hit a grand slam in the top of the eighth inning to go up 9-5. And the player that hit the grand slam kind of walked his way toward first base, spiked his bat toward the Ole Miss dugout. There was a long delay. He was ejected from the game. Ole Miss got 2 runs in the bottom of the eighth inning and then 2 more runs in the bottom of the ninth inning to come from behind and win that game by a final of 10-9. And then in the final game of the series, you remember Florida was winless in SEC play. They were 0-8, kind of a desperate team. They scored 5 runs in the top of the ninth inning to go from down 8-6 to up 11-8. Ole Miss loaded the bases in the bottom of the ninth inning, but couldn't get anything across, and Florida salvaged the game 11-8. So the Rebels win the series 2-1, and Ole Miss is 6-3 currently in the SEC. The standings, you've got 4 teams at the top of the SEC that are 8-1. Arkansas, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas all getting sweeps this weekend. Then you have LSU a game back at 7-2. Ole Miss and Alabama 2 games out of first place at 6-3. And then down at the bottom of the league, you got 5 teams: Florida, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Texas A&M, all at 1-8, and Missouri. Whew, that is a tough look for Missouri, 0-9 through 3 weekends of conference play.
Florida's had a rough schedule to start with, and tons of injuries. Yeah, pitching staff too. Had a freshman going on the first game on a Friday. You don't see that too often. They're going to set the tone for that one, but.
Yeah, and I don't think you'd be surprised to look up a couple of weeks from now and see Florida has kind of righted the ship.
Oh, yeah.
They've got Vanderbilt this weekend and then Missouri, and that's all at home.
You had to love watching O'Sullivan over there every time there was a walk. I mean, it looked like the steam was coming out of his ears, and then he would go make a move. And every time he walk, all right, let's go get this guy out of here. Because I'm the same way. I don't know about you, but watching guys walk and balls.
Yeah, it's
golly. There's a lot of that going on.
It is tough. The all-time hits leader in the Southeastern Conference, former Mississippi State Diamond Dog Jake Mangum, made his long-awaited debut in Major League Baseball yesterday. The 29-year-old rookie got the start in right field and batted in the 2-hole in the lineup. Now, he was 0 for 3 at the plate, but in his last at-bat of the game, he drew a 4-pitch walk to reach base safely. And Jake Mangum's Major League Baseball career has officially begun. Really good dude. He, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you were certainly glad to see him move on from college baseball because he tormented the Rebels in games between the Dogs and the Rebs for 4 years and was an incredible player and a really good guy off the field as well.
Yeah, and if he would have been playing in this era, he might have gotten 7 years, in before he went to the pro game.
But I suppose that is possible.
He just ruined Ole Miss's any momentum you had going in when you played them. Boy, he just said no.
I was at Old Waverly a couple of years ago. It was right before the season began. I had my son with me. Jake Mangum could not have been any nicer to what was at the time a 10-year-old little boy who didn't really know who he was, but just a super, super guy. And I know there are a whole lot of stories about Jake just like that. Congratulations. Gets called up to the show, a dream that he's been chasing for a long time, probably took longer than he would have liked for it to have taken. And one of his best buddies from high school was there. Gardner Minshew, NFL quarterback, former Brandon Bulldog. He was there. He and Jake Mangum grew up together. They were buddies, 2 exceptional athletes from the state of Mississippi, and pretty cool to see him there to support Jake in his Major League Baseball debut. An update from the Mississippi Lottery when we come back. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Get the inside track on Mississippi politics. Yeah! Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Appreciate those of you that have given us the heads up that one of our affiliates, 96.9 FM, and the Delta is off the air. Storms tend to do that for us, and it's a bummer. It's a bummer. This time of year, though, good grief. One after another. I heard somebody say not too long ago, Lance, and I concur, what happened to just good old thunderstorms in the spring? Why is it every time we have a line of thunderstorms, it's like, well, let's go to the First Defense Doppler radar team and take a look at all the potential for tornadoes. Like, just let it rain. Just have a little thunderbanger and let's move on. But anyway, time for a lottery update brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery, mslottery.com. For Lotto America, no jackpot winner in Saturday night's drawing, which means tonight's drawing, the estimated jackpot is $28,180,000 with an estimated cash value of a little more than $13 million. Numbers from Saturday night's drawing, 2, 21, 33, 46, 52. The star ball was 8, and the all-star bonus multiplier was 3. In news from the Powerball, a jackpot winner, a Powerball ticket matched all 6 numbers plus the Powerball in Saturday night's drawing to win the game's jackpot worth an estimated $526.5 million. The estimated cash value was almost $244 million. According to lottery officials, the winning ticket was purchased at a 7-Eleven in, I know you're going to be shocked, California. The numbers were 7, 11, 21, 53, 61. The Powerball was 2, and the Power Play multiplier was 3. And so, the Powerball jackpot resets to $20 million. The estimated cash value, a paltry $9.3 million. Still take it.
Well, that's probably about what they were left with after paying off everybody out in California. They may have had to pay California money. You never know.
Give me some double play.
Double play, Saturday, March 29th. Number 7, 11, 14, 26, 59. Powerball of 10. Mega Millions, no jackpot winner. You're going to have a jackpot on the April 1st drawing Tuesday. That'll be up to $29 million, and the estimated cash value on that is $13.3 million. Numbers from Friday, 2, 9, 31, 60, 63. Mega Ball of 23, Megaplier multiplier 5.
Mississippi Match 5 on Saturday. A ticket purchased at Walmart in Columbus matched all 5 numbers to win the Mississippi Match 5 jackpot. Congratulations. That win was worth $97,738. Estimated jackpot for tonight, $52,000. Sunday night's drawing, the numbers were 1, 18, 25, 26, and 34.
Well, your cash 3 $500 Sunday midday numbers 549. The evening drawing 954. Don't see that too often. Cash 4 $5,000 midday numbers 3328. Evening 3474. Fireball was 3 in both the midday and the evening. And the cash pop was 7 in the midday with an evening cash pop of 9.
Kind of a light week for the lottery claims office last week. They only paid out $296,000. Didn't have enough of you show up with those winning tickets to collect. Retailers paid out a little less than $5 million, $4.6 million last week. So we had a bunch of winners in the state in the past week. Got a new scratch-off game that is debuting tomorrow, April 1st. No joke. It's a new April scratch-off game that are hitting retailers. You want to see what's hitting the shelves? Tune into the Mississippi Lottery's Facebook Live at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. There is an enhanced Mega Millions game that is launching on April 5th. Big changes coming to Mega Millions. The multi-state lottery game getting a makeover. Bigger jackpots that are going to start at $50 million. The jackpots will grow faster. A built-in multiplier exists on every play, boosting non-jackpot prizes up to $10 million. And there are no more break-even prizes. Every win is worth at least double the play that you made. The game change launches This coming Saturday, April 5th, with the first drawing of the enhanced game on Tuesday, April 8th. But cost of a ticket going up to $5. Mega Millions has already created over 1,300 millionaires since 2017. You could be next. Drawings Tuesdays and Fridays at 10 o'clock Central Time. Got to buy your ticket by 9 o'clock. For more details, visit mslottery.com. Let's give you a couple of winners before we get away from the lottery update. Match 5 winner in Starkville. Starkville woman won $1,000 from a ticket that they got at Sprint Mart in Starkville. Meridian man won $2,000 on a ticket from Universal Food Mart in Meridian. And with the 200X Cash Blitz scratch-off, a Meridian man won $4,000 on 4 tickets from Universal Food Mart in Meridian. Universal Food Mart handed out some winners over the weekend.
Universal Food Mart sounds like a place where you can get a little bit of everything, maybe.
Well played. Well played. 7 o'clock hour coming up. We'll start out with a bit of acrimony, it appears, between the Senate and the House. Then Jeremy England, Senator representing District 51, will join us to talk about the conference weekend and a whole lot more. That's coming up. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Keeping Mississippi in the know, one morning at a time. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome again. It's Mornings with Richard Cross into the 7 o'clock hour on a rainy day across the state of Mississippi, although that big front is making its way to the east and to the north, and some of that rain is getting out of here. It was, if you were waking up an hour or so ago, and I guess if you're waking up now in parts of the state of Mississippi, it's one of those days where it's kind of hard to get out of bed, right? You got a little thunder rumbling. Maybe you see a little flash of lightning. You hear the rain coming down. You're like, oh, can I just have 30 more minutes? I don't know. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But much of the northwest part of the state of Mississippi is now out of the rain. As you move farther south, Lance was talking about when he came in this morning, making his way from the res to County Line Road. Felt like he was driving through a tornado at times. Parts of the metro still got some pretty heavy rain coming down, but it's moving off to the east. And the Gulf Coast may get a little bit of rain that it was not getting earlier this morning, but things going to clear out, and this front will make its way through and should be a pretty reasonably pleasant day. Pretty big difference, though, in temperatures from the north part of the state to the southern part of the state. Talking about highs in the mid to upper 60s in northern Mississippi. Southern part of the state, you're going to be knocking on the door of 80 degrees when it is all said and done on this Monday morning. Glad to be with you on Mornings with Richard Cross. The C Spire text line is open, as it always is. You can join us there at 601-879-4395. Are you looking for game-changing technology? Then you need C Spire on your team. 5G wireless, nationwide, fiber, home internet, and business IT solutions built as tough as you. Learn more at cspire.com. C Spire, customer inspired. As we begin this 7 o'clock hour, we remind you that this hour of the show is brought to you by MWG. You find them online at MWGEmployerservices.com. MWG Employer Services, they know that running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services come in. They provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or visit them online. Again, the website address is MWGEmployerservices.com. Only one team showed up for conference weekend. But the other team says that they gave fair warning that they would not be playing this weekend.
Oh. Oh.
No.
Good stuff.
No. We're not talking about SEC baseball. We're not talking about Sun Belt Conference baseball. We're talking about the Mississippi legislature. A decision that could push the legislature into a special session in the offseason, to stick with the metaphor.
Yeah, I like it. Keep going.
Or could force overtime if they're willing to suspend the rules. Got a timeout on the field. We've got a rules review.
Yeah, this is like a fake injury, you think? Like one of a flop?
Talked about this in our news headlines earlier. The Senate gavelled in at the state capitol on Saturday morning for what is commonly referred to as conference weekend. That means the time when the Senate and the House get together in some office meeting rooms with coffee that's stale after a couple of hours and lots of pastries to hash it out, come up with the answers on the multi-billion-dollar budget for the incoming fiscal year that begins July 1st, 2025. The Senate, as is tradition, was there. The House was not. And that's because before gaveling out on Friday, Republican Speaker Jason White told his representatives, go home. Go to your districts. We'll see you Monday afternoon when you come back. JT Mitchell at SuperTalk News, supertalk.fm, writes, the decision by White had some puzzled considering conference weekend and its deadlines for budget-related bills was due to begin. But if you ask White, the move shouldn't be surprising. Gave you this quote earlier. Jason White said, when I was elected Speaker on January 2nd, 2024, I pledged to my House colleagues and all Mississippians to strive for a more transparent and open budget process. Members would not be expected to meet behind closed doors late on weekend nights to rush out a budget without full vetting and an opportunity to question and scrutinize every tax dollar spent. That was in a statement that the Speaker of the House, Jason White, released on Saturday afternoon. Senate leaders scoffed in disbelief at the seemingly principle-driven decision by White, asserting that his unwillingness to participate in conference weekend put state agencies in peril. Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann released a statement, and I like the Lieutenant Governor. I do. I like Delbert Hosemann. But this statement is just dripping with hyperbole. We all took the same oath. We all adopted the same rules. We all agreed to be here. If we can't set a budget, that means for Child Protective Services, we have little girls tonight having to stay in hotel rooms. Teachers can't sign their contracts for their jobs. Highway patrolmen are out there not knowing how much they'll get paid. Except for the fact that the current budget is good until January 30th. And so the idea that through Child Protective Services, little girls having to stay in hotel rooms tonight, teachers not being able to sign contracts, and highway patrolmen not knowing how they will be paid is not an issue for today. Now, if we were to get to the 4th of July or August 1st without a budget, then we would have a problem. Oh, Larry, I could have seen that one coming from a mile away. I said, I like the Lieutenant Governor, Delbert Hosemann. I do. I think he's a good man. I think Delbert Hosemann is full stop, legitimately a good man. And I think that Delbert Hosemann has had a focus during his time in office on policy more than politics. I genuinely believe that. And I think you can look at the tax debate from recently and see the evidence to that. Because if for Delbert Hosemann it was all about politics, if it was all about what am I going to be doing in 3 years, am I running for another office, am I running for governor, then I'm not sure that he would have handled the tax debate the way that he did. But he handled it the way that he believed was the right way. Now, you don't have to love the way that Delbert Hosemann handled that tax debate. You don't have to agree with his positions. You can think that it's too conservative. And I mean conservative because some people would say, well, Delbert Hosemann is not conservative enough, like Larry and Mai saying, so, Richard, you like Democrats. And another message that says, sounds like a Democrat. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. And when I say that the tax break was too conservative, I mean his approach was a more conservative budget-related approach than the House plan, which, in a weird twist, makes some people say that Delbert Hosemann is less conservative than the House because he went with a more conservative plan. The idea being conservatives get rid of taxes as quickly as possible. So a roundabout way there to point out that I thought that the statement that Delbert Hosemann released over the weekend was a little disingenuous.
Well, and it
was a little fear-mongering.
And never a dull day in the Mississippi legislature. No doubt about it.
Briggs Hobson is chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. He is a Republican, asserted that Senate negotiators were prepared to meet with House negotiators for budget talks as early as last Monday. However, House negotiators did not make themselves available until Thursday, leaving not enough time to hash out a budget proposal without a weekend full of work. In his statement, he said, we were ready to negotiate early in the week and unable to get agreement with the House to negotiate until Thursday morning. Said that there was a handshake agreement on about 70% of the budget-related bills, but there were a lot of hard discussions. Said we made good progress. I feel like we were on course to get most, if not all, of the bills done. That's with the negotiations that started on Thursday. Jason White responded to that. Contrary to comments made by Senate leadership, the House did indeed debate and pass the entire budget and sent a combination of both House appropriations and Senate appropriation bills, and all of those were simply met with Senate amendments that would not allow them to pass and thereby force a conference weekend. So what are the options on the table right now? Either suspend the rules and extend the current session beyond its scheduled sine-die date of April 6th to revive all budget-related bills, or the governor will call a special session for lawmakers to come back to Jackson, where setting the budget would be the only item on the agenda. Senator Jeremy England joins us next. This is Mornings with Richard Cross.
From the Venable.
Know where the news is going next. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
And I'm tired of taking blame when I ain't done nothing wrong. I'm tired of other people trying to take what's mine.
C-Spire text line open at 601-879-4395. Thanks for being with us as you get your week started on a wet and cloudy and rainy and in some places kind of rough weather Monday morning across the state of Mississippi. If you need to give yourself just a little bit of extra time, please do that. Make sure you get where you're going and all your people where they need to be safely as we start this new week. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Jeremy England joins us to start things off here. He is Senator representing District 51, Chair of the Elections Committee, Vice Chair of Ports and Marine Resources. Good morning, Mr. Senator.
Hey, good morning, Richard. How you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Good.
How about you?
I'm great. I got in between the thunderstorms this morning.
There you go. You look dry. I think Lance was a little wetter when he came into the studio. He couldn't dodge the raindrops.
Yeah, he had to wade in, he was telling me.
That's right. All right, so a little bit of a war of words back and forth between the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker of the House as it pertains to the weekend that was conference weekend. I described it in our last segment as one team showed up for a conference weekend, but the other team said they gave fair warning that they wouldn't be playing, and now the only options are overtime or reschedule the game. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but what happened this weekend?
Yeah, that's pretty fair. And look, as the temperature gets hotter outside, we have what we call capital hot. So it's getting very capital hot out there. But what we did, Richard, we have scheduled in rule schedules this at the first of every term a conference weekend. I put it on my calendar for my wife to have, so she knows I'm not going to be home that weekend. So I think the Speaker referred to it as a tradition, but it's not really tradition. It's rules. It's what we do. It's like having a lab project due on a Monday and having the lab open on Saturday to go get it done, right? Just to use some collegiate terms there. But
in fairness, the lab also has been open for the previous 3 months, and you could have used it then, right?
Oh, look, it has, and there has been work going on. But deadlines tend to get things done. That's how we operate up there, and that's how we're able to get so many things done. Mm-hmm. Focus was on the tax bill for a long time there, especially with Senator Josh Harkins, who was vital in helping create the budget as finance chairman. He was working with Lieutenant Governor's staff, and several of us senators to come up with what ended up being the Senate language placed into HB1. So we got that done. Of course, right. It was a feel-good week. We were all excited to get that done, and then next thing we get hit with well, Senate, you'll be here this weekend, but we're not even coming in. We're not even going to open our journal. So anything that you do, you can't even file it. So it's definitely a setback, and we're kind of in a spot now where we've got a deadline today. As a matter of fact, we passed the deadline on Saturday, and we've got another deadline today, and we're not going to be able to get budget bills filed according to the rules or according to our calendar.
What does that mean? Because I think there was some pushback from senators about extending the session, suspending the rules to extend the session so that you can stay in. There were some senators who said, no, we're not going to vote for that, which would mean special session, right?
That's right, Richard, because we've got to have a budget. We've got to prepare and finalize a budget. And what a suspension resolution, if we have a suspension resolution, that would extend the session, essentially. It would say, okay, well, we're going to suspend the rules, and we're going to go back, and we're going to add some time because we didn't meet our deadline, so we're going to go further. And if we don't do that, then yes, we'll have to be called back on a special session. And Richard, the unfortunate thing about all of this is by the House essentially, taking their ball and going home at the end of last week instead of being there when we were up there working on bills. We now the people of Mississippi are going to look at it and say, look, the legislature is not doing its job. So this reflects poor on all of us. They don't care whose fault it is. They don't care, where it comes from. But the Senate's position is we've set this timeline. We have our budget. We have our families and our regular jobs we'd like to get back home to. And just because the House wanted to kind of change up on us and not just break with tradition, but break with rules and go home on conference weekend, and it's really set us back. It was just not a very good thing to do, in my opinion.
So most likely those magic words of sine die not going to happen this week. Or maybe they will, but that won't be the end of the session necessarily.
That's right. I mean, we may sine die without a budget, which would, of course, lead to us moving, the governor having to call us for a special session. And look, I've seen the governor operate. The governor's not going to be too kindly to the legislature in his message to call for a special session. The message will be, look, the Senate and the House and the Senate didn't get the job done. I'm going to call them back. I'm going to instruct them to get a budget together. And I'm not sure if that's what the House wants. It's certainly not a good look for anybody. And again, Richard, the blame game can go wherever it goes, but the people of Mississippi don't care. They don't want to see us bickering back and forth. They want to see us doing our job. And I was here this weekend. My fellow senators were here this weekend to do that job.
I want to ask you a question unrelated to this. A report that came out of conference committee, this emerged on Friday afternoon. And this is a specific bill. And the reason, I don't know how ingrained you are in this specific bill, but it's the deregulation and allowing gas stations to sell hemp drinks. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot in there. I got this on Friday afternoon, and I was looking at it. It's 243 pages. And I'm trying to go through this thing. And, you've got 30 pages of definitions, and it's basically an amendment to the 1972 code that would allow and legalize this.
Right.
So I guess I've got two questions here. One, why the heck are we legalizing this in gas stations? And I think that's the big question. But two, if you're not specifically involved in conference for a bill and it comes out of conference, how do you digest, when there are a whole lot of other bills that are coming out of conference as well, 250 pages to know really what is in a bill and whether or not it makes sense?
Yeah. Yes, so to answer your
I know there's a lot there, so unpack that however you want to.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, I think the reason that, we've got this bill is because there were some, we had a hemp bill a few years ago to allow folks to start developing hemp. That led to these products and these drinks that we've seen in grocery stores, and some of them have very high THC content in them. And look, I don't understand all the language, but I'm just telling you what I've been told on the floor, and why I voted in favor of this bill when it came through was because it restricts that and it limits that and brings it down, and it gets some of the non-regulated stuff out of our gas stations and where children can go in and buy these things. So it's a good bill. I don't think it's a perfect bill because I tend to agree with you. Why don't we just get these things out of stores? But I don't see us going there, at least not in this bill. So we're going to carve it down and get it where I think it could be something that maybe we can live with. I have heard from certain law enforcement officers that they're completely against it. And we listen to them, and we need to listen to them because they're on the streets with it. But yes, a big bill like that, just to go to kind of move on to your second part of that question, we have big bills. Look, HB1, when we put the Senate language in, it was a big bill, and then lo and behold, there was a typo in it, and we were all working through it. But that's what the whole process is for. That's why we have people like Senator Nicole Boyd and Senator Tyler McConn sitting at a table yesterday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday going over the DEI bill, because there's a lot in it, and there's a lot to look at, and they're doing it, line by line, paragraph by paragraph, to make sure that we have a good bill, and that's what conference weekend is for. That's what we're here to do. The big bills that are left on there, the governor's already signed a lot of bills. He doesn't sign them on the last day. It's not like a big signing ceremony at the end of the day for all the bills we pass. So the big things that are still out there, everybody's up there working on them.
You said that you're aware that law enforcement, various law enforcement officials, I don't know if it's a collective thing. I know it was when it came to Kratom and the conversation around that, are against this bill. I spoke with a chief of police who was working with state narcotics folks as well, and they're like, one, we're trying to figure out what the heck is in here, and two, we don't understand why this is passed, because it's creating while yes, there is to be more regulation, the fact is the stuff that they have claimed was in these drinks previously, there was everything in these drinks when you sent it off to a lab and had them tested.
That's right. Well, and that's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get a guardrail around. We're trying to bring it back in because, yes, that stuff's out there, and our law enforcement is seeing it being used for bad purposes, or are causing people to be inebriated to the point to where they ought not be, based off of anything they can purchase in a gas station. But that's what my understanding is of the intent of this bill, is to get things down, get the milligram levels down, get the non-regulated stuff out of the stores, keep children from being able to purchase it in gas stations as easily. So on that level, I think it's probably a bill they could live with at the end of the day. But if it's not getting explained to them properly, that's tough to do, especially to so many law enforcement officials across the state. And that's why they have great agencies to represent them at our Capitol. But whatever we need to do to try to get them more comfortable with what we're doing is important. And even at the end of the day, if they're not comfortable with what we're doing, they can let us know.
Is the lobby for law enforcement not as strong as the lobby for hemp products?
Oh, no, it's very strong. I mean, look, they've got the law enforcement behind them. And as a conservative Republican, we're all very, very pro-law enforcement. I mean, we want to help our first responders. I'm a member, one of the founding members of the First Responder Caucus. So we've got that going. But I think what the issue here is you've just got a complicated bill that's trying to regulate and bring these things back into line, and law enforcement is just not comfortable with it.
We will continue the conversation with Jeremy England. He represents District 1 in the Mississippi Senate. We'll talk about what's coming up and some of the things that have been on his plate during this session as well. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. This segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
No filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Maria, there was some blue and some road time.
Jeremy England is my guest, Senator from District 51. You got little ones at home, right?
I do, yes.
You'll, I think, relate to this. My studio is just outside my house. I stuck my head in the house during the break, and my 12-year-old son, he's got bed head, blanket wrapped around him, he was fixing himself breakfast. Right. I said, "Morning, buddy," and he said, "I'm tired." I was like, "Yeah, it's Monday morning, man. Time for a start of a new week. Great opportunity." He goes, "Stop trying to make a bad thing a good thing." I was like, from the mouth of babes on a Monday morning, I know there are a lot of people that can relate to that.
That's right. That's funny.
We're glad to be with you this morning, and Senator England, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the tax bill garnered so much publicity, created so many headlines throughout the session. A lot of the other bills that were pretty important kind of flew below the radar. Mm-hmm. One of those that was vying hard for airtime, if you will, was legislation related to PBMs. Mm-hmm. And the independent pharmacists in Mississippi and their association, have been as active as any group I've ever seen during this session to try and let their voice be heard and to get legislation in place that would help them. We've kind of heard both sides of that story. Where is this going to end? I mean, the PBM bill, did that die in the House?
It did not. It was actually referred to conference. So we made some changes in the Senate. I tried to put an amendment in the bill that ended up failing, but we transferred that back over to the House. They did not concur with our changes and invited conference, so that's where it sits now.
Okay, so what is that going to look like over the next couple of days?
Well, there's definitely going to be some debate about it. And look, we're all hearing from independent pharmacists, but we're also hearing from the business community and our self-insured community that already have contracts that addresses bringing prescription prices down for employees of some of our state's largest employers. And so what my amendment was to that bill was to try to take your self-insureds and any ERISA-covered employers out of that bill because the state ought not jump into their contractual dealings and say, look, this is no longer valid. You've got to start over again. And I hope that we see something that does that. As a matter of fact, there's case law out there out of Oklahoma, particularly that is working its way through the federal courts right now, that says that ERISA preempts state laws regarding PBM.
Okay.
And I happen to agree with that. So I think if we don't get that fixed done, if we don't get that amendment into this bill, we're going to see our employers suing the state of Mississippi essentially to get a similar ruling. So it's a very complicated issue.
What is the crux of I agree with you completely. I mean, we have talked about PBMs, and I think I've finally gotten to the point where I've got a pretty clear understanding of that process and the way that a PBM exists as a middleman between the drug companies and insurance companies and the retail pharmacies. What's the crux of the bill as it exists right now in conference?
Yeah, so what the bill says is you can't, no one can steer, no employer can steer employees to a direct pharmacist, which again, that's getting the contractual relationship. But also it says that if a pharmacist files a complaint and says, hey, we're not being reimbursed at a rate similar to any other pharmacy across the state, well, then they can then demand that everyone else start paying at the higher rate. So you're going to see reimbursements made to other pharmacists, and it could potentially cost a lot of money. But independent pharmacists, they're correct. There needs to be some PBM reform in that process because there are independent pharmacists that aren't making enough money off of selling these prescription drugs.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when we hear this is described as a consumer protection type bill, I don't agree with that because the independent pharmacists are wanting to get more money. That money is going to come from somewhere. It's not going to come from the PBMs. It's going to come from these employees who are benefiting off of their employers' contractual relations through their insurance programs and things like that. And so that's basically the crux of it. You've got independent pharmacists saying they're not being paid as much through for the similar prescription drugs as other pharmacies that are involved with maybe some of these bigger PBMs and bigger chain stores, bigger pharmacies.
Right. Well, and PBMs, the biggest three are owned by pharmacies also, right?
That's my belief.
Or at least under the same umbrella. I mean, you've got CVS Caremark, which is all tied together, Caremark being the PBM side, CVS being the pharmacy side.
That's right.
And a couple of others as well. So when you talk about that appeals process, so if you're not being reimbursed at the same rate that another pharmacy is being reimbursed and you can appeal for that, I mean, is that addressing spread pricing? I mean, is that ultimately what we're talking about there?
Essentially, yes. But so again, if you have one pharmacy that's getting paid more, and the other independent pharmacist finds out about it, and they file that process through the pharmacy board, they're gonna start seeing more money for those prescriptions, which means that, again, that money's going to come from somewhere. It's not going to come from the PBMs. It's typically going to, just like everything else does, going to pass on to the consumer to have to pay more for those drugs that they're getting through this.
Why would it not come from the PBM, though? Because the PBM is the one that's kind of controlling that spread and putting the difference in their pocket, aren't they?
Well, I think that's what the intention is, and that's what they want to happen. But as we all know, those costs always get trickled down.
They like making money, and so they're going to figure out a way to make money, or they're going to try to figure out a way to make money in a different way.
That's right. And look, that's the point I made on the floor, is that, look, we've got a regulation that's causing problems, and we're trying to out-regulate this regulation when really there needs to be some reform on the federal side of things with regard to PBMs, because what we're doing, and that's where I feel like our bigger businesses are being brought into this, because, of course, they have a lot of firepower behind them. But in the meantime, they stand to lose tens of millions of dollars, which is job-creating or job-killing type money, if we were to pass the bill in its current form.
Two of your committee assignments, Chair of Elections Committee, Vice Chair Ports and Marine Resources. Out of this legislative session, what has come specifically from those committees that either you're proud of or you think needs more work?
Yeah, so one thing that I think needs more work, and that I was really proud of in the work that we put into it last year and again this year, was some campaign finance reform bills that we passed. One that would have prohibited foreign nationals from putting money into ballot initiatives. Now, I know we don't have a statewide ballot initiative. I know I probably just blew up your text line there by just saying that.
You went there,
Sorry.
not me.
Right, that's right. But we have local, initiatives, and foreigners are typically dumping into that. And look, I hope we one day have the ballot initiative back. So when we have it, this would have been a great bill that said, look, foreign nationals cannot spend money on these local ballot initiatives. That plus this bill that said, that everybody down from the municipal level all the way up to the state level has to report their campaign finance reports to the Secretary of State's office, and those have to be available online. So the more transparency there would have been with that bill would have been great. And then we revised kind of the limitations on what corporations can spend. All of those bills went to the House and died in committee. Okay. They passed out of elections, they were double referred, and they died in the House AET committee without even being called up. So that was unfortunate. I hate that happened. In-person early voting is still a bill that is alive. Now, the House took some of their language, or actually stripped my language out and put their language in. It was basically absentee voting, but you put your ballot into a QMR machine, I believe it is, the actual ballot machine.
Right.
And we've got a few things we're working on. And one interesting development on that this past week was an executive order from President Trump regarding elections. And in that order, he said states cannot receive ballots after Election Day, which we currently have that rule. It was a COVID rule that was put into place back then that says if it's postmarked by Election Day and received within 5 business days after the election, that those ballots can count. Now, we had in the Senate, we passed a bill 52-0 to get rid of that bill, that rule last year. I don't think the 5-day rule is a good rule. I think ballots ought to be received on Election Day, just as President Trump says. But the good thing about my in-person early voting bill is that code section is open, so we can go fix that now, and that's one conference report that, look, we've got a very strict deadline tonight at 8 p.m. And with the House not being here this weekend, that kind of hurt this, because I've got some language I need to go over with them in this, but potentially federal funding is on the line if we don't go change this, because that's the directive from the President of the United States on that. So I want to look at that and see where we can go So that's still alive. We've got a few qualification bills out there, and we've got a bill that's changing our U.S. congressional primaries down to March every year, because usually they're only in March on presidential election years, because that's our second Super Tuesday or whatever it is that we vote on. And we're going to put that more consistently and just say it's March every year. That way you don't have this back and forth, and it'll be more consistent for voters and for the congressmen or congresswomen when we eventually get to that point.
Only 30 seconds or so left. Just if you could quickly explain, bill goes to conference, comes out of conference with recommendations. What has to happen then for it to become law?
Okay, so you have 3 conferees. You have 3 Senate conferees and 3 House conferees. They get together, look at the language, come up with a conference report, and then file that conference report by tonight's deadline at 8 p.m. It has to be filed, and then we have to pass that conference report on each floor, and it's a voice vote on each floor. If the conference report passes both houses, it then goes to the governor.
And voice vote, can a representative or a senator call for a full roll call vote if they want it?
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can call on a final vote. You can call a roll call at any time.
All right.
Yes.
Lot to get done in the next few days.
There is.
Will it get extended, or will there be a special session? We will see. Senator Jeremy England, thank you so much for your time this morning. Always good to visit.
Thank you very much, Richard. Appreciate
Mornings
it.
with Richard Cross. We'll be back.
From the Venable.
Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It's not warm when she's away.
Monday morning, but a ceasefire, not a ceasefire, the ceasefire text line is popping. Got a message from Clifton I want to share. Ceasefire text line 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. Said may help summarize House Bill 1502. So that is the legalizing hemp drink and hemp product bill. I say legalizing. That's probably not the right way to describe it. It's regulating and authorizing the sale of the regulated product in convenience stores, I guess potentially grocery stores, anybody that's licensed to sell them. I talked to a lot of people about this over the weekend, and there is lots of concern from different entities, from different groups. There is the law enforcement concern, and that is dealing with another mood state being altering product that supposedly is regulated but currently is wide open in terms of lack of regulation. And there's been some pretty significant abuse of the hemp-related products that are available right now in convenience stores. There is the dispensary group who are jumping through hoops right and left and dealing with the regulation for the legal distribution of marijuana, cannabis-related products, who argue that, hey, you can't just legalize this and put it in gas station with giving like lip service to regulation. Why not have them in dispensaries that are already heavily regulated? There's the convenience store and petroleum associations that are saying, yeah, put the regulation on and give us the ability to sell them. So Clifton says, the Mississippi Petroleum Marketers and Convenience Stores Association is for this bill, requires a minimum age of 21 to purchase hemp seltzers, regulate hemp seltzers just like beer and tax them like beer, also bans all of the bad synthetic hemp products. He said, and trust me, they are out there. This bill protects the consumer. And I responded to Clifton. I said, appreciate the input. Know it's a significant revenue producer for convenience stores. Law enforcement seems to view this differently. And to me, this is the crux. You have convenience store operators, gas station operators, who operate with a high level of integrity, and they run their stores as a business. And then you've got convenience store operators that don't. You know, the ones that are dirty when you got in and you go in and everything on the outside of the store looks like a billboard for every vice product that exists on planet Earth, and you just kind of feel grimy. And those convenience stores don't always operate the way some of the others do. And one of the things that law enforcement told me there's a concern is like, look, we can have all the rules, all the laws in the world about the age at which you can sell a product to someone or something. But that it doesn't mean that convenience stores are going to comply, whether that's a rogue employee or a directive from ownership. And I had one law enforcement officer say, we could spend our entire budget trying to regulate the sale of products which are only supposed to be sold to 21-year-olds or older to underage, and we would run out of money and we wouldn't begin to curtail the problem.
Well, and I mean, I guess a question I would have for you is, why would every product in that convenience store be under some form of regulation, product labeling, and accuracy, but yet this is immune? Like,
well,
you can't go
part of what this bill.
I mean, a piece of gum, you can't buy in there without it being that you know what you're getting. So why is this a buyer beware market? Why is that?
Well, supposedly what this bill is doing is changing at least part of that. They are creating regulation. They are creating labeling. I mean, you can really get off in the weeds in this, but there's like a THC level of 0.3% as the maximum allowed in a 12-ounce hemp-based drink. And
got the drinks too. I mean, that's one thing, but there's every other form of intake of it that you
all
want.
All of the products.
Yeah,
right?
Everything's right there. Yeah, none of them are regulated.
There are a lot of them. So, it's I think it's concerning. I mean, as a parent of 3 young impressionable children, one of which is about to be able to drive, I mean, I hope we're doing the right thing from a parenting standpoint and helping her to understand what's good for her and what's not good for her. But sometimes kids make poor decisions. And, beer is one thing. Hemp products are scary, man. Kratom's scary. We'll be right back.
Shaping Mississippi politics each morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome again, 8 o'clock hour. This is Monday morning. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. Alongside Lance Tolbert, we are glad to be with you. Glad to be starting the week with you. A little rainy, a little overcast, in some places a lot rainy, and a whole lot more than overcast. But it is getting better as we go through the morning, and this big old storm front is moving its way to the east and to the north and out of the state of Mississippi. When we started this morning at 6 a.m., there was a sliver of northwest Mississippi and a sliver of extreme southeast Mississippi in which it was not raining. Now, it's crazy how this works, right? I mean, a storm front that's moving quickly to the east. We're down to just kind of the south, like east central and southeast Mississippi are the ones that are getting the rain. Got some potential for severe thunderstorms in parts of the state, in the eastern part of the state, the southeastern part of the state. Central Mississippi, Northwest Mississippi, Southwest Mississippi, for the most part, you are in the clear and you can get on with your day. It really is kind of crazy to watch how that band of storms has moved. When we came on this morning, we made the reference, like from Baton Rouge to Nashville, you're getting rained on. And now from, east of Baton Rouge, now it's like from New Orleans to Knoxville. So it's sliding off, getting out of here. Hopefully, you got a good weather week on the way. Good to be with you. The C Spire text line is open, 601-879-4395. 601-879-4395. The age restriction works for tobacco and alcohol. Why doesn't it work for this? I'm employed in this distribution industry that mainly supplies convenience stores. I can tell from being in sales for 25-plus years that the bad characters that you are referring to are serious about who they sell tobacco and alcohol products to. They do not want to lose their license because if they do, they're out of business. My opinion is that the same model will work with these hemp products. The company I work for has made the decision not to distribute this product, mostly from a business standpoint, but also from a moral perspective. If ICE were to check out the operator of the stores that are pushing the product, I think President Trump's team would like to speak with them about going back to where they came from. That's just my viewpoint from being in that line of business. That's from Jim and Ripley. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. I really do. Another message on here. Yes, these, quote, gas station, close quote, products are scary. Byproducts and no regulation on standards, don't know what you're getting, also have an impressionable teenager. And in fairness to what Jeremy England was talking about in this bill, it would put in a regulation process for the hemp drinks and the hemp-related products. I think as a parent, that's still concerning. And Lance, you made a really good point. I mean, I was talking about, my kids, right? And, you hope that you are parenting the right way. You hope that you are raising your kids to make good decisions. That does not mean they will always make good decisions. But you're also concerned about other kids and the decisions that they are making. I just got a text from another member of the Senate. He said, these are simply recreational intoxication THC products. It's the first time in the state of Mississippi that we would allow that, and they're glossing over it. I don't know how you can state it any more clearly than that. This is supposedly regulated hemp products. It's not recreational marijuana per se, but it's like recreational marijuana in liquid form where they control the amount of THC in it. What they don't control is how much of it you buy and how much of it you consume, and the fact that it's available over the counter. And when I say over the counter, I'm not talking about in a pharmacy. I'm talking about at your local fill-em-up station. By the way, if fill-em-up is an actual gas station, my apologies, I'm not singling you out. I hope you know what I meant.
I guess I have a question to our listener. What is the point of having all these vape stores if you can basically turn a gas station into a vape shop or a pharmacy or a liquor store? I guess that's my question here is what happens to the existing businesses that make a living off of selling vape stuff and all that? At what point do you go, well, you have a lot of duplication here? Who's going to suffer? And I guess, you have two completely different business models. One does that specifically, and the other sells gas and nooks and little things like that. And all of a sudden you've got basically a pharmacy in a gas station where the products aren't even regulated in any way. I mean, what's in them? I guess that's my question. What's in the product is not even regulated.
I would say less pharmacy and more dispensary.
Yeah. Well,
And I'm not like trying to pick nits.
No, good point. I mean, and that's kind of the way I'm thinking is, what are we doing here? What's the goal, I guess? With anything you choose to do, what is your goal? I guess create more revenue, obviously, but what's the cost of that?
Would it make more sense if this was going to be widely available, that it's got to be available through dispensaries?
Well, you passed a law to ensure that was the protective status, that you had to have a license and you had to go through the appropriate process and go to places that actually do this job specifically.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the question. What happens to all the other businesses out there that are seemingly doing it above board, focusing on products that do have a licensing or regulation or product labeling, but yet you have this business over here that can kind of do whatever it wants with certain things. And I guess my question is why?
What's another message, C-Spire text line. I truly wish that when you speak of Kratom, you would recognize the difference between gas station Kratom and pure Kratom and educate yourself on the difference.
We've talked about that. I mean, there's synthetic.
I've actually done that. Yes. And we've talked about it. We haven't talked a ton about Kratom, but we have talked about it some.
But who's going to tell you?
And I understand that there are people who have found pure Kratom as a remedy for serious pain that they were dealing with.
But the labeling on that stuff doesn't say pure Kratom, and what I'm saying? There's no regulatory.
Where are you going to get that?
Yeah, you're going to go to Southeast Asia.
You're getting it in a 16-ounce tall boy can at a gas station with no idea what's actually in it, and there is evidence that is more than just anecdotal. That is, it's highly addictive. Highly addictive. But, I mean, if it's worked for you and it hasn't caused an addiction, congratulations.
Well, and, we can say...
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we can say, beer or alcohol and cigarettes, chewing tobacco, that's very addictive stuff, but you know what's in it. According to the FDA and all that, it's gone through the process. This stuff hasn't, and that's where I have a major problem with it, is there's a buyer beware market for one product, but yet everything else has to be regulated. Why do you have that? Why is that loophole in existence? Well, the federal law and the Farm Bill and all that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking, why is this stuff being sold to kids and normal folks with no protection for the buyer at all?
Yeah.
But yet every other product you buy is going to give you some buyer protection.
And oh, by the way, when we talk about hemp-related products, and we say, well, these are for underage 21, I'm sorry, can't buy them if you're under 21. You know what maybe the fastest growing segment of cannabis consumption is? Gummy bears. Mm-hmm. Gummies. Why? Because they taste good. You just pop in your mouth, and you don't have to smell like a skunk after you smoke it.
It's just candy.
You don't think that's a marketing ploy toward younger people? Older people may be taking advantage of it, but it's a marketing ploy toward younger people.
Well, and didn't the cigarette tobacco industry have to pay out billions of dollars for target marketing to women and kids and things of that nature? But yet,
I mean, unrelated to this conversation, but you've got the Senate. I'm sorry, the legislature. Oh, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I don't want to speak out of turn, but isn't there a bill that is banning flavored banning vape flavors? Like you only have menthol and tobacco flavored.
They'll get around that. There'll be a little oil or something you can put in it.
Yeah, maybe.
Flavor it yourself. They're always going to find a way around it.
Oh, Thomas, the welfare of humanity is the alibi of tyrants, especially the welfare of kids. That's right, Thomas. We can't put any laws that are for the common good. Can't put that into effect because it takes away your conservative right to choose. Oh, Thomas, I love you, brother. Most of the time. We'll be back.
From the Venable.
Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
What else?
And always on the SuperTalk app.
Appreciate all the interaction with you on the C-Spire text line, 601-879-4395. C-Spire, inspired by you. The president was on one this weekend. He got after it on Truth Social, a lot of different topics. There was this one. I really wish I could do a better Donald Trump impression so that I could read his post in Donald Trump voice. That would be a significant addition to Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm not sure I have that ability, Lance. Working together with a fantastic and very talented...
Huge.
It doesn't work. Working together with a fantastic and very talented executive resident staff, along with the wonderful people of the National Park Service, we are making tremendous enhancements to the White House, thereby preserving and protecting history. One of the interesting dilemmas is a tree planted many years ago by the legendary President and General Andrew Jackson. Southern magnolia came from his home, the Hermitage in Tennessee. That's the good news. Bad news is that everything must come to an end, and this tree is in terrible condition. Very dangerous safety hazard at the White House entrance, no less, and must now be removed. This process will take place next week and will be replaced by another very beautiful tree. The most beautiful tree you've ever seen. The historic wood from the tree will be preserved by the White House staff and may be used for other high and noble purposes. Maybe you could make a lot of, like, White House lawn magnolia tree coasters and give those to, give a 4-pack to your foreign dignitaries. Make a coffee table out of a slab of the White House magnolia. So there was that. Then there was the Let's Go After the Morning Show. Kristen Welker's entire first half hour of the lowly rated Meet the Fake Press this morning was devoted to the boring signal witch hunt. She doesn't want to talk in detail about anything that matters, like how well we're doing against the Houthis, substantive peace talks with Russia and Ukraine, or Iran. She wastes my administration's time by talking to them about nothing. Why can't NBC, one of the worst broadcasters on television, hire people that are honest and credible? The reason they don't is because their chairman, Brian Roberts, is a pathetic loser who is petrified of the left and always will be. Comcast's MSNBC and NBC have fought me for years, spending almost all of their waking hours making up fake stories. And look, I'm president with really high poll numbers and great accomplishments. Good job, Brian. Wasn't NBC the network that carried The Apprentice? Is that right?
I'm going to look that one up.
I'll let you look that up. I think that's right. Donald Trump, the real estate magnate and ratings-generating TV producer / star, great for NBC. Donald Trump, the president, less so. You got it?
I'm digging, man. It didn't pop it right up there. Let's see, what network? Let me use that.
I'm almost positive The Apprentice
NBC.
was on NBC.
Yeah, you're right.
You okay. All right. And then one more from Donald Trump. I mean, these posts, they crack me up. This was a good one. I got a call from a very good guy and friend of mine, Kid Rock, asking me whether or not it would be possible for me to meet in the White House with Bill Maher, a man who has been unjustifiably critical of anything or anyone Trump. I really didn't like the idea much and don't like it much now, but thought it would be interesting. Problem is, no matter how much he likes your favorite president, me, he will publicly proclaim what a terrible guy I am, etc. Very much like the Democrats at my recent address to the joint session of Congress, where I stated correctly that no matter what I said or did, they wouldn't stand, they wouldn't applaud, they wouldn't smile or laugh, and certainly they wouldn't be in any way nice. Who knows, though? Maybe I'll be proven wrong. In any event, I'm doing a favor for a friend. I look forward to meeting with Bill Maher, Kid Rock, and I believe even the legendary Dana White will be present. It might be fun or it might not, but you will be the first to know. It's the way he uses social media.
Yeah, it's never dull, is it?
It is never, ever dull. Oh, you can join us on the C-Spire text line. Amanda in Pike County turned the magnolia into pulp and then into toilet paper. Waste not, want not.
Hey, I watched a video on what you can do with kudzu. The root is actually extremely edible, and a lot of work goes into boiling it down to the starch itself. But,
oh, geez, Lance, before you know it, we're going to be selling unrelated kudzu products in gas stations all across Mississippi, and it's going to be all your fault.
And the kudzu lip balm and kudzu jelly. There is a kudzu jelly, actually. I've not had it, but some of our listeners say it's not bad at all.
Kudzu jelly?
Mm-hmm. Hey, you can make a jelly out of anything. One of our regulars...
Is this like you throw spinach in a smoothie and you don't ever taste it? Or are you trying to make it taste like kudzu?
No, I mean, it has a... Again, somebody will tell you, but it's kind of like anything out there. If you wouldn't think you could make a jelly out of sweet peas or peas, but you can, and it's delicious. You just go, a pea jelly? Ugh. No, it's really actually pretty good. So I can only imagine... Because I've never had to kudzu anything, but they definitely make something out of it that's edible.
I would love to hear from you this morning on the C Spire text line, other than maybe a one-liner or two. What do you make of this past conference weekend in the legislature that has traditionally been the time when the House and the Senate both hunkered down for a long weekend of grinding through the budget, coming to an agreement, rolling up their sleeves, putting in the long hours, getting it all done, and being able to emerge Saturday night or Sunday afternoon or first thing Monday morning and say, here is the budget, let us approve it all. And it didn't work that way this weekend. I really am intrigued. Now, this is not taking a side one way or the other. I do think the Senate has a point when they say, we set the rules and we abided by the rules, and they didn't abide by the rules. So if the rules were voted on for the legislature for the year, and both sides agreed that there would be a conference weekend to hash out anything that needed to be done, and the House bailed on that, don't love that. Don't love that. But the other side of that is, if the Speaker of the House said from the very beginning of the session, we are ready to work on the budget. Let's do the budget process openly and with full-on transparency. Let's get it done before the end. We don't want to do the caffeine-riddled, bring your sleeping bag to the office, bleary-eyed process of pounding out the budget at the last minute. Let's get it done throughout the session. Was that a talking point or was that real? Did the House try to engage the Senate on the budget process throughout the year? And let me just insert this here for a second. You've got appropriations chairs and then assistant or sub-appropriation committee chairs. And there is a responsibility that those people in positions of leadership have to meet with all of the entities that fall under their particular jurisdiction and say, what do you need? What do you want? What's non-negotiable? What are your aspirations? What's the justification for what you're asking for? Let's just use UMC as an example. University of Mississippi Medical Center gets funding from the legislature. So they've got to meet the budget people with UMMC. Have got to meet with the budget people from the House, budget people from the Senate. Hey, here's our request. Here's why we're asking for this. They've got to figure out what the proper appropriation is, get that into the bill. And you got to do that with all of the different entities that receive money from the state government. And you got to put it all together. It's not a process that happens overnight. And there are a lot of different reasons that it's slow sometimes. But I don't know that is not a process that couldn't be streamlined a little bit more, where you tell those people in November, we're starting the budget process early. Your deadline to have your request is the third week of January. If we don't receive your request by the third week of January, we will assume you do not need any money, and it will not be appropriated. I suppose you could lay it out that way and start on everything sooner. But how do you feel about that? Jason White said, we're not engaging in the last minute not leaving until it's done stuff this year. And then he followed through on what he said on Friday. And the Senate didn't. The Senate was there for the weekend for conference committee. They're like, what do you mean the House isn't here? And not only that, they shut down everything where the Senate couldn't file anything until the House got back today. We're back with you after this. JT Mitchell will join us, news director with the SuperTalk Mississippi News Team. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
French far-right leader Marie Le Pen is barred from running in the 2027 presidential election after being found guilty of embezzlement. Maybe she can run for mayor in Jackson. Good morning. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks for being with us. We got to adjust that, Lance. That is not Caleb Sailors.
Oh, I thought I had him. I got the wrong one.
That is the one and only JT Mitchell. He loves it when I set him up with something like that. Right?
I had it right to begin.
News headlines here in the Magnolia State. He's the news director with SuperTalk Mississippi News Team. If you don't have supertalk.fm bookmarked, please do. Just click on the news tab. You see all the stories. It's weather stuff, it's news stuff, it's state legislature stuff, it's local stuff, it's economic development stuff, it's sports stuff, it's a lot of stuff. What's up, JT?
Lots of stuff, it's right. What's up, Richard? How are you?
Good morning.
Busy week, huh? You got enough to talk about this morning?
Yeah, a few things going on. Let's start with something that you have been hammering for a month now, and that is tomorrow, municipal elections.
That's right, and this might be your final time hearing me tell you to go vote. There is an election pretty much in every county across the state tomorrow. Polls will open at 7 a.m. They'll be open until 7 p.m. If you are in line before 7 p.m., but you're waiting, and that clock hits 7:01, doesn't matter. You were in line, you can still vote. We have a ton of stuff to follow tomorrow, from mayor elections to city council elections to board of aldermen elections, school board elections. I mean, I'm just going to be honest here. Municipal elections, tomorrow is the primary. Municipal elections are arguably more important than who you voted for president last year. That's extremely important. Do not get me wrong. But in the words of Secretary Michael Watson, these are the people who control what's in your backyard. I mean, these are the people who can up your taxes, who can decide what happens in your public school system. This is a big deal. I really encourage people to go vote because we have a pretty bad history of turnout for municipal elections.
Yeah, and I mean, if you talk to people who are running for city council seats, for board of alderman seats, for mayor, etc., it's less about, if they're being honest, it's less about platform and more about turnout, right? It's, okay, historically, this is how many people vote. This is how many votes we need. Can the people that support me, can I get the people who say they support me to show up and vote on Election Day?
That's right.
Period.
Absolutely. And, so my wife and I were having this conversation, kind of comparing those elections to our local elections. If you really break it down, people who represent you on the city council, the board of aldermen, or in city hall in the mayor's office, it's a lot less political. It's not as party-based. These decisions are, will you have a street closed in your city? Will you have a street paved in your city? Will we be allocating money to the arts? I mean, it's not really Republican or Democrat. And so I encourage people to check out your candidates. Educate yourself before tomorrow. There's plenty of ways to do that. We've done multiple articles at supertalk.fm on different cities across the state that break down the experience levels of each candidate.
Yeah.
I really encourage people to do their research, and, if you don't vote, you can't complain. I mean, that's how I think about it.
Well, you better tell Facebook about that. I don't think they got the memo.
Yeah, Facebook, TikTok, I see a lot of people on there going after it, and I'm not convinced all of them vote. I'm really not. But a few PSAs before tomorrow. If you are going to go vote in person, make sure you bring a photo ID. We have a list at supertalk.fm of what photo IDs are allowed. If you have a driver's license, bring it. You're good to go. Like I said, polls are open from 7 until 7 p. Do not bring a bunch of signs to the polls. That's illegal. Do not take a photo of your ballot at the polls. I don't care if you need a good Instagram story. That's illegal. It's not worth the repercussions. And so just get out there and vote. If you're a mail-in absentee voter, your ballot has to be postmarked, signed, sealed, delivered by tomorrow. And it must be received by clerk's offices by April 8 to count. And last but not least, if you want to track live election results, our news team here at SuperTalk News will be covering this like a blanket, as we always are. We'll be live with hourly reports tomorrow night until about midnight. We'll do some written recaps at supertalk.fm. I mean, we got you covered.
They were singing Kumbaya at the governor's mansion on Thursday evening for the signing of House Bill 1, eliminating or starting the process of eliminating the state income tax. Representatives and senators alike, some in three-piece suits, some in cowboy boots, some in sunglasses, some glaring into the sun, and everybody with some sort of a smile on their face. And we thought that for this session, perhaps the drama was over between the House and the Senate. And then Friday afternoon came. The gavel dropped in the House of Representatives. Representatives went home for the weekend. Senators did not. They stayed around for conference weekend. I think the lieutenant governor called it a tradition. Jeremy England said this morning it's more than a tradition. It is rule. The rules that both houses agree to, or both sides of the legislature agree to at the beginning of the term. And ultimately what we ended with was the Senate frustrated that they didn't get farther on the budget because the House wasn't there to do their part. What does this look like going forward, JT?
Yeah, I was going to say, ultimately what they ended up with this weekend is nothing. Maybe a bunch of wasted time. Because I try to keep this in layman's terms because there's a bunch of legislative deadlines that are just confusing at the end of the day. But historically, it has become status quo for this past weekend every year to be when lawmakers stay in Jackson and they negotiate until a budget is set. And then that budget will be taken to the floor early the next week and passed by both chambers typically. And it's one of the final chores of the session. But that final chore was not done this weekend. And I honestly, I was tuning into the Senate on Saturday. Obviously, the House wasn't there. I heard Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann speak to reporters. I heard Briggs Hobson, the Senate Appropriations Chairman, give his spiel about their side of the story. And then Jason White, the House Speaker, gave his side of the story on social media. And I just really want to find what the truth is. I mean, there's three sides of every story, and I don't know which ones to believe here. I mean, I thought you and Senator Jeremy England used some good metaphors this morning to describe what happened. But at the end of the day, nothing happened. There is no $7 billion budget. I know you asked what's next, and that means what's next is they either have two options in my mind. You suspend the rules, and that could lead to an extended current session.
Right.
You suspend the rules, and you get a budget done. Or you go home, and you wait for the governor to call you back to Jackson to get a budget done.
Is there a scenario where they suspend the rules, but they could still sign a die by the 6th? Like they suspend the rules, get the budget done this week, still go home on the 6th, the way that... I mean, if they were going to be able to get the budget done over the weekend, if everybody had been home, can't they start this afternoon, spend the same amount of time, and get it done before everybody's supposed to go home?
I think they absolutely can. And I think that's what the Speaker said on social as well, is they absolutely have time to get it done before April 6th. But listening to the Senate on Saturday, it sounds like a lot of senators from both sides of the aisle are not going to vote for a suspension of the rules.
Okay.
Whether that is based in principle.
Is this payback from the Senate for the House not being willing to go back and correct the errors in House Bill 1?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, it could be based in principle. It could be based in payback. The principle side of it is, like the lieutenant governor said on Saturday, we all took the same oath. We all adopted the same rules. We need to get our stuff done and go home to our families. But this whole...
Now let me ask you this. If the Senate says we are not willing to suspend the rules so that we can restart the budget process, and ultimately it calls for a special session, can the Senate then also complain about the additional cost to taxpayers in the event of having to have a special session?
Right. I mean, you're preaching to the choir.
No, I'm asking the question. Can you complain about it costing taxpayers more money to have a special session if on principle you say, nope, we're not suspending the rules, this was supposed to be done, we're not getting it done even though time is left?
I don't think you can, because for people that don't know, it costs around $100,000 every day to have lawmakers in Jackson. And so if you elongate the session...
And that cost is based on what?
It's based on salaries, per diems, housing, food, etc. Just the cost to keep the lights on.
Okay.
And so whether that's an extended session or a special session, that's more money. And taxes were just cut. So let's spend some more taxpayer dollars, right? Because we have them. I'm being facetious. But yeah, they do have until...
smell my sarcasm because I'm laying it on pretty thick.
They have until April 6th to get it done if they don't want to spend extra money.
Quick time out. We'll spend a few more minutes with J.T. Mitchell. He is the news director with SuperTalk Mississippi News Team. They do a great job. If you're not keeping up on supertalk.fm, you are missing out. You're missing an opportunity to be informed with all that is happening in the state of Mississippi. Quick time out. We'll wrap up the Monday edition of Mornings with Richard Cross with you right after this.
From Sumner to Summit to Summerall, Richard has something for you. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Silence from the cooking pot, mixing up with the air.
Good to be with you this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Don't forget that all of the shows on SuperTalk Mississippi are available via podcast. You can listen at your convenience on demand. Just subscribe to SuperTalk Mississippi wherever you get your podcast, whether you're looking for mornings or middays with Gerard Gibbert, or In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar, Sports Talk Mississippi, Good Things with Rebecca Turner, the Thunder and Lightning podcast, the Rebel Report podcast, the To the Top podcast. It's all there with convenience for you, available online, of course, on demand at supertalk.fm. JT, what else we got going this week? What is the news team keeping an eye on this week?
Well, the two big items we already talked about is, yes, elections are tomorrow. And we're going to keep reminding people through our own platforms. I mean, this is the last time I'll be on with you until the polls are closed. But it's huge, man. I mean, you have challengers to the incumbents in a lot of cities like Jackson and Biloxi and Ocean Springs. And then you have an opportunity for a new mayor in other places like Cleveland and Gulfport. And then you have a lot of incumbents running unopposed. But if you keep going down the ballot, you have a lot of important city council races. Of course, here in Jackson, we have a corruption scandal. All people are innocent until proven guilty. One of the people who's indicted is the mayor, and he's running. He has 11 challengers. Another person indicted, he said he's not running. That's Ward 6 Councilman Aaron Banks. So really, there is a lot of stuff happening at the ballot boxes tomorrow. I encourage people to look up a sample ballot. And then what else is going on? Basketball ended. That was rough, but a great historic year for both the Ole Miss men and women. But we talk about the session. Coming back to that, we have more deadlines this week, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was looking at them this morning, I thought to myself, do they matter? I mean, we just missed the deadlines to pass a budget. If you suspend the rules, those deadlines go out. So we really are going to see today when lawmakers gavel in at 1 p.m. in both the House and Senate if they're going to suspend the rules or sit on their hands and wait until a special session.
We talked throughout the morning about the big line of rain and some severe thunderstorms that are mixed in with that band of rain that is moving pretty rapidly to the east and northeast. Mississippi Gulf Coast, you are kind of in the middle of it right now. Got some pretty significant red over Gulfport headed toward Pascagoula and Biloxi in just the next few minutes. So be aware of that as you're making your way to work this morning. Much of this system has moved out of the state of Mississippi. It's now only the southeastern kind of corner and down on the coast that is still dealing with pretty heavy rain and some severe storms in some places. So heads up on that. What about the stuff that came out of conference? You and I were communicating on Friday afternoon about this House bill that we talked a good bit about it earlier this morning that would legalize, but that's probably not the word, regulate the sale of hemp products and hemp drinks in convenience stores, gas stations, all across the state of Mississippi. You've got that one that people are pushing back out. You've got PBM stuff that is headed to conference. And then you've got Tesla vandalism that we've seen in other parts of the country coming to Mississippi, coming to Brookhaven, Mississippi as well, with police looking for Osvaldo Torres Rodriguez, a 63-year-old native of Cuba who is not a U.S. citizen, who was caught on camera. A camera inside the Tesla, by the way, vandalizing a Tesla vehicle with a pair of wire cutters. Go with any direction you want to go with any of those things.
Well, number one, you and Senator England had a great conversation. He brought up the early voting bill. Obviously, the House has stripped that down into more of an expanded absentee process. But I encourage people to watch that one. I mean, we talk about the ballot box. That will impact how you go about going to the ballot box and when to vote. But about this Tesla deal, Richard, I got word this weekend that a text message. It was, you got to go watch this video. And it was a video on Facebook of this guy being caught on camera using wire cutters to vandalize a Tesla in the Brookhaven Walmart. And I'm like, man, it's finally hit us. Because if you've been keeping up with the news, Teslas and Tesla dealerships and EV charging stations have been vandalized across the nation as people are trying to revolt or boycott, I guess, Elon Musk and his role in the Trump administration. This one that happened in Brookhaven, if the accused vandal is who they think it is, he's an undocumented immigrant. And I think that just gives the White House some more material to move forward with what they're trying to move forward with.
Adios means goodbye, Mr. Osvaldo. Thanks for being with us this morning, JT. Always appreciate the time. Lance, fantastic work as always. We're back with you tomorrow morning just after 6 o'clock on Mornings with Richard Cross.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.